At the core of what I do is just love and appreciation and wanting to see my people win at all costs. So whatever I do, I feel like it's all for the good of my people in general. Whatever it may be for the betterment of my people, for the betterment of my people, I'm 100% going to do it with love.
It's always important. It always has to be priority to assert the the identity, the value, the leadership of our communities in these spaces that we're in, particularly those that are educational spaces. And so, what we wanted to ensure through our work is that wherever education is happening, whether it's in the formal institutional spaces or just in general, when it applies to our children, to our community, to our youth, that it must be led, it must be driven by the values, the narrative, the statement of identity, the purpose, the goals that come from the people, that come from our community. Uh, Even when people have good intentions, if they are not representative of the values of our communities, oftentimes they will try to steer us towards their goals, their purposes, their values. And that's unhealthy for any community to have themselves being driven by people who are not from their community. And so TandemEd really grew out of trying to ensure that paradigm is shifted and that at all times, in all spaces, community is at the lead of its own education.
I think TandemEd is important across the communities across the country. One is understanding that you have someone to lean on, right? So again, TandemEd works with leaders who aren't always looked upon or found from a foundation, right? But we help them grow so that the foundation is like, how don't you know about this individual who's serving 100 meals a day, touching the unreachable that your organization say that you want to reach. It's about leadership development. It's about capacity to support, right? So it's really about going, again, I'm using the word in the trenches because I can't think of another word, but going into those quote unquote under-resourced or underserved communities and finding those gems and helping them polish them and amplifying their voices and giving them that platform to really grow and to share their whys and their missions with new audiences.
So we talk a lot about the power of mindset shifting in our work. And these community-led campaigns are really about bolstering the mindset and the perspective. And that bolstering comes from the people themselves, because the process that we go through is for the people themselves to be able to highlight what are the collective goals and purposes and narratives that will be campaigned throughout our community. But we also know that it's not enough to only have the foresight. We also must have the resources in order to bring those visions into reality. And so what we've done through our work is to be able to find ways to have funds that are invested into the visions and the dreams that come from community, so they're able to actualize what's in the brain into the world. The beautiful thing about that is when we invest these funds toward the end of our processes is that these initiatives that get resources have the collective buy-in of the people in that community, because they've all been a part of the process leading up to that point.
Just because we all look alike, it doesn't mean that we have the same lived experiences, right? And there's a narrative that the larger society says that we are, that how they try and define us. And oftentimes that's based upon stereotype and somebody else's belief system for us. And they're so well equipped in sharing this message that they put a lot of money, they put a lot of energy, a lot of planning behind the scenes to project certain images of us in the media. And there's a reason. So what can we do to take that power back? Because I know that's not true.
Got a call from Ryan when we were attending Harvard, and said, we're gonna get through this together. And I think as our classes started to progress, one of the things that we started to notice was folks were really intent about portraying our communities in the most negative of fashions, and it was very contradictory, I think, to the program that we're in. We're talking about education. These are folks that are supposed to be going into communities, and I believe that you can only treat somebody as good as you talk about them, right? And so Brian and I sat down and kind of kept interrogating this issue and said, there's issues in communities, but there's issues that have been layered onto communities in a way that I think a lot of people try to put it in as like a community is inherently deficient, and that's not the communities that we knew, right? We knew Black brilliance from the very start. We knew strong Black women. We knew that there was deep leadership within the spaces, and so from those conversations, really, we started hitting the iLab probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning regularly, and came up with TandemEd, really as to fill that gap and to fill that space, to say that our communities are brilliant. We start from the assets that are in our communities. We also know that every opportunity, but every solution is baked into our communities already.
Before TandemEd came, I really wasn't talking about narrative at that time. Narrative was just a key word that we know, but it wasn't really in our mainstream at that time. So just to hear our brothers talking about that narrative, a new narrative, and change it, and we can create our own story. Not only can we create our own story, but we can promote it and push it, and we can stand by and live by it. And then to the point where if we believe it, then others will believe it as well. And I stood behind that, and that was a great move. I think it's important to own your story, because if you don't own your story, somebody else will. They're going to tell the story the way they want to say it. So I think just in general, just as a person, as a human, as a person walking on this earth, it's important to own your story. And for so long, our stories have been owned by others or have been taken and resold at no benefit to us. So now it's important for us to own our story and to share our story in our way. And so now that we have TandemEd coming through and saying, hey, here's a platform for that, that's amazing.
My name is Leon Ford. I consider myself a problem solver. I believe that the Black is Pittsburgh campaign had a profound impact on this city, mainly because, unfortunately, here in Pittsburgh, a lot of times Blackness is associated with poverty, pain, and gun violence. But the Black is Pittsburgh campaign showed, Black excellence, right, in everyday people. It didn't just show the attorneys and doctors. It showed everyday people who were striving to make Pittsburgh a better place. And I think that is important, especially as we try our best to retain Black talent. There's always been this theory that there's no Black middle class in Pittsburgh, and so I think a campaign like Black is Pittsburgh kind of challenges that and empowers us to create not only the narrative, but a real stories in Pittsburgh, real opportunities in Pittsburgh to make our city more prosperous for Black people. I would say that it's important to acknowledge where we come from and what we are going through, but it's equally important for us to strategize for the future. And although our experiences may be painful, and sometimes overwhelming, oftentimes that's where the best solutions are found. And so I would encourage community to embrace those experiences, to acknowledge those experiences and look within those experiences to find solutions, because those solutions not only will help the individual heal, but the collective heal.